Facebook. Welcome to Comic Spot. Yeah, Comic Spot. That's where this gangster grandma, I'm not even a grandma, but I'm gangster. I was in the army, okay? I'm gangster. You don't want to mess with me. So this army veteran here, me, gets to vet comedy veterans. And I have one for you today to get to know. We're going to call him Peter Stewart, mostly because he is Peter Stewart. And he's here. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad to bring him to you because he's doing great things on the East Coast with his comedy. He is the founder of Comfy Comedy. And if you haven't heard about it, you're going to hear about it. So come on in, have a seat, sit with each other. People who, this is not like a wedding ceremony. You know, like if you're here to support me, you can sit next to people who are here to support Peter Stewart. It's okay. So you want to come in and sit down close. You won't get anything viral. And he is a regular at Comic Strip Live. And when I say regular at Comic Strip Live, I don't mean like he's a regular like I am at the mic. He's passed the auditions and a regular at Comic Strip Live. And those are not easy to pass, might I add. So he does a show and on 3rd Street and Avenue B, and it's called the Harry Lemon. When the world is reopened again, it will take back off. Everything this guy touches, he's like the Rapunzel of comedy. You know, like whatever he spins turns into gold. He's so fabulous. You have to hear him whenever you get a chance to hear Peter Stewart comedy. You got to do it because this guy is great on stage. And you know what? He's nice off stage too, or he wouldn't be here. Thank you so much for coming. Welcome to this tiny little stage, Peter Stewart. Yay!
Hey, thanks for having me.
Oh yeah, are you kidding me? I love you. You're such a great, might I go ageist on you? A great young guy, and you are a great comic. And I'm not going to say young comic because you've got the stage presence of a 10 or 15-year comic under your belt already.
Thanks. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I should take you everywhere to do my introductions. It's been a while since I've had one that nice.
I want to be the world's best comedy host. Am I on a good path for that?
You're well on your way. On your way.
Yeah, I love hosting and I like riling people up. And I believe in you. I believe in your comedy. I believe in you as a human. And so it's easy to be excited to have you on here because I really feel it, you know, I don't have to fake it.
Thanks. Yeah. I mean, I've been going hard and having some success. So it's been really, I'm off to a good start and I got a lot more in front of me.
I want to talk about your successes. Tell me everything you're doing. I know I interviewed you on bum equipment. Now I have studio equipment. So take me back through, and for those watching the first time, tell the new people all about what you're doing. Comfy Comedy, your Avenue B Street, whatever. Tell us about those things.
Yeah, so I'm one of the founders of Comfy Comedy. So I founded it with Jim Wallace, Brian McKenna, and James Coburn. So we've been running for coming up on a couple years now. We do a bi-weekly show at the Harry Lemon, which you mentioned is in the East Village. And we're really trying to do sort of a grassroots organic show. We get comics from all over, different backgrounds. You know, I think in our first year and a half, we had 225 different comics on the show. So we're, you know, we're all about trying to get exposure for people. We've done some shows at the Comic Strip as Comfy Comedy, in addition to my regular spots there. So we're just trying to grow it and you know, meet lots of good new comedians and give them a stage that they can perform on.
That's so wonderful. Thank you for doing that for the comedy. You know, it's not easy to come from somewhere else and get time on a real show in New York City.
Yeah, we've heard that from a lot of people, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to be open, and it's a very intimate atmosphere, but we pack the place out. We get, you know, it's a small room, but I say we fill it up. We get 50 or 60 people in there most nights. So it's a lot of fun. The audience has fun, and the comics hang out. It's just a great comedy session and great hangout for everybody.
And how often is that a month?
So before the pandemic, we were going every other week. So obviously, with everything that's happened in New York, we're on pause right now. But the bar has reopened. It just hasn't. It's all outdoors at this point. So we're hoping to get back in there as soon as we can.
Wonderful. So is that a paid? Do people have to pay to come to the show, or is it?
Nope.
Wow.
Yeah, it's completely free. Yeah, just come on out and have a drink, support the bar. But it's no drink minimum, totally free show.
Fabulous. So you get asked to be on other people's shows before the pandemic hit. Tell me about your comedy career from the start to when the shutdown happened. I'm sure you've been asked to be on. I saw you at Broadway.
Yeah. So I won a couple residencies at the Broadway Comedy Club. That was about a year ago now. So I did shows there. That's a great spot, and then do a lot of other shows around the city. I've done a show run by Max Spinelli and Mike Bramante, so two good guys who run a really good show. And then my main hangout and where you can catch me the most is the Comic Strip Live in there Mondays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, Sundays, sometimes. So obviously that's the place to be if you want to see good up and coming comics, but also a lot of veterans, and my favorite spot in the whole city.
So you passed at
Yes.
Comic Strip Live. Tell me how nervous you were to try out and how the tryout went.
Yeah, so I think this is a really good story, because the first time I auditioned at the Comic Strip, I was not a very good stand-up comedian. That's how I would describe it. And so I did the audition. I didn't get passed. And I remember walking home after the audition and thinking, this is something I really want to do. I have to get better. And I actually basically threw away my whole set and rewrote a brand new set and started from scratch that night. And then so I worked, really hard. And a year later, went back through the auditions again, and this time I got passed. So just goes to show that it's never just sort of a smooth rise. There are going to be bumps along the way, and depending on how you react and how you come back from those, I think it makes you a better comic and a better person.
So tell me the specific feedback you got, and did that make you toss out everything? And did you take that specific feedback and write a set based on it? Or did you just go, I need to try something else?
Yeah, so I think it was a little bit of both. So, I mean, obviously the biggest feedback that you can ever get as a comedian is from the audience. And so if you want to kill a comedian really fast, don't laugh at them. Because the silence is deafening when you're on that stage. So that was part of the takeaway. And then just the feedback I got from the club was just, you're not there yet, and they were 100% right. So I went back home, and when I first started, a lot of my jokes were very specific, and I think part of my problem was I wasn't relating to the broader population and sort of relating to everybody in the crowd. So I went home and I tried to write jokes about that. And, one thing, those jokes I wrote that night, I mean, they're not in my set today, right? You're always getting better. You're always writing new stuff. But I think sometimes you gotta throw a bunch of stuff at the wall and see what sticks. So.
Yes. So we both started, like I came from Oregon because of Gladys Simon. And you and I have both been working on material before you got passed at Comic Strip Live, supportive room, where everybody helps each other. I mean, you got people like George Saltz and Gladys Simon and legends coming through, and they'll tell you things that you need to do better. And I know that you've been close with George and Gladys and Robin, and the whole gang is all there to help each other. So if you wouldn't mind telling me how that particular environment has made an impact on your comedy life.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started doing comedy in Toronto and in my hometown in Ontario, Canada. So I was probably early 2010s. I started, and then I stopped for a long time. I ended up moving to New York. And I wanted to get back into it. And so how I got back into it was through Gladys's mic. And so I think the thing that's really great about Gladys's mic is it's good people who want each other to succeed. You know, a lot of times in comedy, it's a very competitive world just because there's only so many spots for all the comedians, right? So it can be tough to find a really supportive environment where you can try stuff and some of it works, some of it doesn't. But Gladys's room has been, you know, really, really great for that. You know, I run a lot of my new material before it goes into my main act. You know, I'm working it out there. And it's a great opportunity. You know, that's where I first started hosting shows and got comfortable as a host. You know, I've met other comedians who are friends, and we write jokes together, bounce ideas off each other. And a lot of just good characters who are you know, good people to get to know in the city. So it's been a great experience, and obviously Gladys herself is a great mentor to a lot of young comedians.
Absolutely. What is it that you're striving for? Because I see no limit to how far you can go in comedy or life, actually. But you're such a great guy so nice to little old ladies like me, you know, like you don't see a difference. You just see people and you love people, and you're fabulous with your material, your presentation of it is top notch. And I are you going for a late night hosting, or what do you want to do in comedy? Because I don't see anything you can't do.
Yeah, so I mean that's a really nice thing for you to say. And so I would say my background is just more on the writing side and less on the performing side. So when I think of, you know, things I really want to do in comedy, I think the main goal is just you always want to try to get funnier, because the more you can build out your arsenal of jokes and just have a good funny presence that people like, that's huge. Longer term aspirations, I mean, I'd love to just get a spot on late night TV at some point. I think that would just be an honor. And if we're talking, you know, shoot for the stars really long term, you know, I'd love to be in sort of a hosting position where you have a show. Like I look up to a comic like you know, John Oliver, and Last Week Tonight is obviously a great show, all the late night hosts, the Daily Show. So I think that is sort of where my talents would lean a little bit more, but we're a long way from that, and so there's a lot of work that would have to go into you know, getting to their level. So,
but I saw that in you. You know, like from the very beginning, I thought late night host.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I love to do is just make jokes about current events, which like I think current events are really great for your writing because it keeps you sharp and you always have new stuff to talk about. But it's not always that great for your act because, you know, after a week or so goes by, you can't make those jokes anymore because something new has come along. But yeah, that's why I think, you know, a forum where you get to be on the air every night and talk about what's going on in the world, that's, you know, I think that's where my strong suit is.
Wow. So I want to go back to one thing you said and delve into it a little bit, if you don't mind.
Sure.
You mentioned coming from Canada, and you had started comedy in Canada, and then you came to New York. So not a lot of us know how to relate to that. So could you speak for a minute about what things fly in comedy in Canada that didn't make the cut here, or what things would never make the cut in Canada that are rocking it here? There's got to be some things you've observed.
Yeah, so so obviously Canada is much smaller than the United States, but we still have a pretty rockin' comedy scene. And you know, a lot of famous Hollywood actors, people don't realize this, but famous Hollywood comedians, they're Canadian. So you look at somebody like Russell Peters, Jim Carrey, very funny guys who are Canadian. I think Canadians really like to make fun of themselves, but they don't necessarily like to make fun of the culture and the country as much. Whereas I found with Americans, you know, one thing that's pretty reliable is making fun of, you know, nice guy Canadians or you know, Canadians not liking conflict, stuff like that. So I think it plays to different countries, I guess. And the other thing I would say is Canada, so the US is so big, and you look at US media and Hollywood, everyone around the world sees that, right? And then you have great Canadian shows too, but they just don't make it down here to the States because it's a smaller market. So there's a lot of references that would play in a Canadian market that you would make down here, and it wouldn't make sense. So I would say those are the biggest differences, but both countries have lots of funny people, and both countries have lots of people who like to laugh. So it's a good combination.
What's the dumbest, stupidest thing anybody has ever assumed because you're from Canada? Comics can be pretty dumb. We can be dumb.
So I had somebody ask me once if we had running water. So that was a good one. And then I once had somebody ask if I knew their friend in Vancouver, because I was Canadian, and so I'm from a town about an hour outside of Toronto. It's a pretty big country. That would be like asking somebody in New York if they knew somebody in Seattle or Portland. So,
do people ever make comments about the royal family to you because you're from Canada, or did they not make that association at all?
Not that much, but I mean, there could still be that association. So I guess that's one of the big differences between Canada and the US. Technically, we still report into the Queen, even though that's kind of superficial. But yeah, I mean, it comes up once in a while. So
about hockey, like we have the NBA and the American hockey, national hockey. Do people ever moan and groan that Canada is in on some of those?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard some players complain that they have to play in Canada, especially we have a hockey team in Edmonton, the Edmonton Oilers, and so Edmonton is a nice place, but it gets mighty cold in the winter and it's mighty hot in the summer. So I've heard some of the players complain about the Canadian winters, but that's probably the main thing.
So do your parents live in Canada still?
Yeah, so the rest of my family is all back in different parts of Canada. And so I'm the only one who's moved down to the States.
Did the COVID make it up to Canada that far?
Yeah, it did. So Canada is pretty similar to the US in terms of being on lockdown. So we've, it's a little bit looser in and around where my parents are, just because it's not a big city. So people are out and they're driving cars, they're going around more. But yeah, it did hit Canada just as hard as it hit the US. Although I do think that Canada is starting to bounce back from it. So hopefully we're coming through it.
Great. That's fabulous. So you're a smart comic. You just throw junk on the wall to see what sticks. I mean, you really think it through, and you come from an ethereal point of view. Like you have smart comedy. And so I was just wondering, with that in mind, like, you're sitting there looking at a world gone mad from a comedy point of view, and you've got to be reeling, as I think you're like a smart observational kind of guy. So what is it that you have observed that just blew your mind, that you're seeing this happen during the pandemic on the streets of New York or at the grocery store? What is the craziest thing you've observed, or things?
I mean, so the pandemic is it's kind of cruel to comedians, I would say, because you've got all this stuff you want to talk about and write about and make jokes about, and you can't leave your apartment to do it. So you're stuck with the online format. But I would say, yeah, especially in the early stages when people weren't sure whether they should wear masks or not, or what the guidance was. People didn't know if they should go out or not. You just saw some crazy things. Like, I remember my neighbor he would go out on our fire escape every day, and it was like he had gone mad. He was singing to himself, and I was kind of like, I was trying to hold it together, but I didn't know what the world was going through. There was a stretch where I didn't go outside for 12 or 14 days. So I didn't, because I didn't know what was going on. I just wanted to play it safe. So I was having food delivered. But yeah, when my neighbor started doing that, the first time I went outside, I was like, whoa, what are we what am I walking into here? Is this going to be like The Walking Dead, or is it a regular day in New York City?
Exactly. It feels like The Walking Dead some days. So, so how is my last question? Because I can be like Barbara Walters and Columbo at the same time. I get it. You know, it's a label. But my last question before I head on out would be, I want to know, this crazy shutdown is something none of us got a manual for. I mean, we mess up our children left and right, and we didn't get a manual for that. And that takes 18 years, but we've managed to mess up the entire globe, you know, in less than 200 days. So in your mind, I don't like going through trauma without having a benefit for it. So in what way has the pandemic made you a better human, a better family member, a better comic, any of the above? How are you going to come out of the pandemic better off because of it?
Yeah, so I mean, I think what I would say is it shows the resiliency of people, right? Like people can get through a lot, and you know, when this year started, I was, you know, really focused on my stand-up, trying to get everything going, doing as many sets as I could every night, getting all of the city. And obviously the pandemic comes and that's all iced because all, you know, the clubs are closed and people aren't gathering to watch comedy shows. But I think to me, the key message is it's, you know, we're going to get through this. This is Earth. We're really good at coming back from stuff like this. And so I'm a big believer that while there will be a few changes, hopefully sooner rather than later, things will go back to the way they were, and people will be out, and, you know, comedy clubs will be packed and people will be ready to laugh again. So I think that's what's coming, and that's what I'm looking forward to.
Okay. And I'm not going to ask because I don't want to hear the answer. I'm going to tell you something.
Okay.
I have a dream. I know I'm white and I have a dream. Go figure. I have a dream that one day, just one day in my life before I kick the bucket, I can be in a major writing room with other comics. Like when you get your late night spot, I just want to be in there helping other comics write jokes one day. I don't want to be on the staff. I don't want to be expected to be funny when I'm supposed to. I just want to waltz in one day, sit down, and say I did it. So when you get that spot, will you just let me come in one day and mess around and leave?
If I ever make it to the point where I have a full writer's room working for me, I promise you can come in and write as much as you want.
Thank you. I wasn't going to ask you, but you know what? I asked you. That would be so fun.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
When are you going to let somebody interview you? Because you're a great comic who's got a lot of stories to tell too. Or are you just going to stay on the hosting side of it?
I want to be interviewed by everybody I've interviewed. I think it should be tit for tat, no pun intended. I think it should be equal, you know, is what I'm saying. I think if I interview you, you should interview. If I subscribe to your YouTube, you should subscribe to my YouTubes, you know, my YouTube, you know.
Okay. Yeah. Sounds, hey, if you ever need somebody to interview you, I'd be more than happy to.
Yes, please.
All right. Sounds good.
Holler at me. I'm your girl. Thank you so much. Bye, Peter Stewart.
Hey, thanks, Linda. Take care.
I'm going to put the stuff up again this time about your spot on Avenue B. And if I type it wrong, holler at me. And if there's more links of any kind you want on there, tell me.
All right. Sounds good. We'll do.
Thank you, Peter Stewart.
Awesome. Thanks, Linda. Take care.
Thank you. Love you lots.
Stay safe.
Stay safe.
Everybody's talking.